Hi everybody. What I wanted to do today is just give you a bit of a background of my experience as one of these Skills for the Future trainees, the sorts of thing that I got to do as part of that role, how that role got extended for another year, and kind of what I've been up to since and how that impacts how I teach today and what I kind of do in my everyday job today. Those of you with a keen eye will also notice that all of these skills that I may have developed, one that I have certainly not still managed to master is attention to detail. It's not the 26th of April at all today, so I apologise. There will be a few typos for the eagle-eyed members of the audience. Yes, currently I am a senior lecturer in archaeology here in Chester. Welcome to Chester as well. So my journey started back in 2012 when I had probably come in not through the expected route into the training programmes, but had come from a PhD already. So I was already kind of quite qualified on one level. But for me, the community archaeology training placements were about adding the additional skill set, the additional support and development that I hadn't got anywhere else in my undergraduate or my postgraduate studies, really, in order to formalise that more through the angle that I wanted to take in archaeology. Archaeology is not just fieldwork. There is so much more to it than that. So I had my training placement with CADU, Welsh Government Historic Environment Service. I'm sure you're all very familiar with that. And supported by the Council for British Archaeology. Because of the way CADU was part of Welsh Government, they were constantly going through recruitment freezes. The administration of it was that I was actually employed directly by the CBA and seconded to CADU, which is how we managed to extend it for another year. But the environment that I was going into within Welsh Government was one of cuts, as always. We're familiar with cuts, aren't we, I think, within our sector. And the various different branches of government really having to justify their existence within the funding streams of the Welsh Government. So I came in at a point where the historic environment strategy was very much about the culture of Wales, caring for the people of Wales, Wales's heritage and identity, as well as tourism and bringing in money for Wales. But also against a backdrop of CADU having to justify how they could address wider government agendas. Very much the tackling poverty agenda was what it was all about at that point. So there I am, kind of a bit naive, but very optimistic. How can archaeology help tackle poverty? Well, this is where my kind of journey set out. A lot of the work that I did ended up forming part of Baroness Andrews' review into heritage and the arts as well, and culture and tackling poverty. Whether or not it has done, again, another evaluative issue moving forwards. But being part of a Welsh or national heritage organisation, of course, I got huge support. The first few months of my placement were very much about finding mentors within the organisation, work shadowing. So I was based within the inspectorate with the ancient monuments inspectors, but ended up spending sort of a few weeks here and there with the education team, some of the properties and care staff, the custodians, and I had a pan-Wales remit. So I got to travel around Wales on a weekly basis, which was fantastic. I also, therefore, had quite a lot of creativity or freedom of creativity to work in the different areas that I kind of chose. So working alongside the monument inspectors, I was directly line managed by Polly Groom and John Berry, who were then the inspectors for South Wales. I got to experience everything that CADU does and offers on a daily basis, but also got introduced to the other partners that they work with. So the Welsh Archaeological Trust, the National Museum of Wales, Royal Commission, as well as the community groups that they already had contact with and networks with. The sites and monuments that perhaps could have benefited from some community engagement and some community custodianship. So the first kind of 3 months or so was spent kind of just getting to grips with the organisation, understanding the red tape of Welsh Government, which I still don't understand. I'm not sure anybody does. Um, and that all led up to the Festival of Archaeology, which was the first sort of big event or set of events that I was involved in. Um, so ranging from helping prepare and plan for events at Sagontium Roman Fort up in the north of Wales at Carnarvon, down to a Forties and Forces event at Lanfey Bishop's Palace, highlighting the lesser known history of this kind of medieval monument. Sort of moving through a couple of months, I was let loose on one of Cadw's guardianship sites. I had a background in fieldwork, and we set up some community excavations at Llanmelin Wood Camp, which is just north of Caerwent in Monmouthshire. This was a monument that was in sort of Cadw care. It's bordered onto a Ministry of Defence range at Caerwent, and it was kind of a rather unloved monument. It needed quite a bit of scrub clearance and maintenance, and it hadn't been excavated since the 1930s, where Victor Earl Ash Williams had put in some nice long kind of 2-foot wide trenches across the site. So there was a sort of a management perspective to the excavations, but also there were some really keen local community groups desperate to get some field work and some engagement with Cadw. But there were also the opportunity to work with some local sort of non-traditional audiences as well. So partnering up with Archaeology Wales, the commercial company, we set about sort of 3 weeks of excavations up at the hill fort itself, involving local pupils at the primary school as well, additional learning needs groups from the secondary school. Because we were on the doorstep of an MOD site, we were also involved with Operation Nightingale, as it was back then. But I'd also started to build links with HMP Park Bridgend, which is an adult prison, male prison in South Wales. Because for me, getting into community archaeology was very much about opportunity provision. I was very lucky as a child and as a teenager to experience archaeology and have the opportunity to fall in love with it. Not everybody has that opportunity. Not everybody gets a chance to experience it and work out if it's for them or if it's not. Fair enough, it might not be, but let's at least let them try. So for me, it was very much about opening up archaeology to the possibility that it could offer people something in their lives. And HMP Park were really keen on this. So as one of the sort of initial activities that I did with the prison is we had some lads out on day release on licence coming excavate with us as well. Obviously, health and safety, ethical issues. We couldn't have the children on site at the same time as the lads from Park, but all of those logistics. So everything from setting up an excavation, working with the community groups to build the project, managing the excavations, the engagement, the different groups on site, all of that provided or helped me develop some really important project management skills, as well as sort of people skills. It wasn't just the excavations as well, so we continued to work with the various groups, with the historical societies, who have gone on actually to go back to the outpost of the hill fort and do their own excavations there, again with the support of Archaeology Wales. With the school groups, we continued to do a sort of a youth panel type exercise or activity that was very much about them telling their story of their experience, but also the monument. And that included artefact workshops. We went to look at the old archives back in the National Museum of Wales, so behind the scenes, and with thanks to Adam Gwilt there, who made all of that possible. Some more kind of arts and crafts-based activities, all the kind of stuff that we've seen happen everywhere else, the tried and tested good methods for engaging kids. We also did some filmmaking workshops, and they put together their own film. They scripted it, they edited it, they actually did the soundtrack for it as well. They came up with a really cool rap. All of these kind of experiences that these kids wouldn't have otherwise had. They lived in a very wealthy part of Wales, but within that wealthy kind of county, there are some pockets of real deprivation. And these kids were coming from those sorts of areas. So again, providing them opportunities to engage with archaeology, but also perhaps to develop some other skills at the same time. And then we talked to the teachers as well about what they might benefit from. And for a lot of these sorts of groups, we found that sometimes just recognition of an achievement was enough, some kind of external recognition. And that transpired that what they wanted was a certificate at the end of it. It wasn't accredited, but it listed the sorts of behaviours or skills that they've developed. So that's what we put together for them. One of the kids had said that he'd never had a certificate for anything before in his life. So just that alone, for me, was one of those moments where I thought, okay, well, we've done something really good here for someone. And that led in to some further stuff that I ended up doing with HMP and YOI Park, which were a set of education workshops, effectively, within the education department in the prison on archaeology. These were designed initially using artefacts that we'd recently excavated from the legionary fortress at Cillian in South Wales. So I was lucky enough to be part of those excavations and had those objects to take into the prison with me. So I designed a course, 12 workshops on Roman Wales off the back of these objects that we went into the adult male prison, working with the general prison population, although they did have a young persons unit and a vulnerable prisoners unit as well. We were with the mainstream population. And that included everything from classic kind of recording and analysis of objects all the way through to, I had them section drawing. So I printed off some to scale massive great sections from the site, had them drawing them to scale like we would as if we were in front of a section on site. Had them pot washing. We did some more creative stuff. So they did some art projects based on Roman frescoes. So they made their own frescoes, they made their own pottery, wheel thrown pottery and handmade. And getting them to incorporate and realise that they're doing everything from English literature or English language, English literature even, so reading, creative writing, maths, geography, all of these kind of other disciplines that they, without really realising it, because a lot of these men were men that hadn't gone through the education system as perhaps we have. The feedback from that was phenomenal. And they actually asked us back to do another set of workshops, which I then redesigned to look at the archaeology of Britain as a whole, sort of chronologically. And we mapped that second one onto the Agored Cymru Awards, so that those of them that submitted their portfolio at the end could actually therefore come away with an accreditation. And this is kind of where my contract got extended, because Cadw didn't want to get rid of me. I didn't want to leave, but they couldn't hire me directly through Welsh Government. So thanks to sort of the CBA for continuing to employ me for another year, but with Cadw sort of via the back door. And so the Mortaria project, I won't take credit for Mortaria, motivating offender rehabilitation through archaeological recording, investigation and analysis. That was entirely John Berry's fault, for acronyms. But for the second year, so it was therefore very much developing what I'd already been able to do. We set up a Welsh shipwrecks project with the education team, and that was actually Erin Robinson that ended up working on that with the Royal Commission. Continuing to engage with the Festival of Archaeology. I also got tasked with writing Cadw's then community archaeology framework. What else I ended up doing? Working with Communities First, which was a European funded tackling sort of poverty, education skills within the community and the Rhondda Valleys. Also wrote an HLF application for a development grant for the Unloved Heritage project, which then got full funding and was delivered after I'd left Cadw. And because that's not enough, decided to get involved in all the excavations at Hen Cerwis as well, with the then Inspector Will Davis. And that was a partnership project with the Clwyd Paris Archaeological Trust with the local community. And because the prison was so keen that we were offering something different for their kind of the inmates, they also asked me if I would work with the young people's unit there as well. So we did something a little bit different with the young people, and we created an art-based kind of archaeology heritage project. So starting with a load of hands-on workshops, artefact workshops, looking at the history of Wales, we then worked with a graffiti artist and a professional director of photography, who's multi-BAFTA Cymru award winning now, to create a graffiti mural in the exercise yard, which you can see on the screen, and we filmed that process, or in fact I should say they filmed that process and photographed that process, that then created an art exhibition that was displayed in the Senedd, so the seat of the Welsh Assembly. And again, feedback from that and evaluation of that was very positive, although there are limitations. The sustainability of something like that is highly problematic. I don't think Cadw have delivered anything else in HMP Park since I've left. I may be wrong, but I've not heard of anything. So lots and lots of stuff to get my teeth into, lots of fun as well. The level of enjoyment over those 2 years was phenomenal. It's some of the best 2 years of my life. But it was also the other opportunities that it opened up. So I had the opportunities to go on sort of kids in museums workshops, so thinking about how to get kids into heritage and museums. I went on project management training internally within the Welsh Government, which is based on Prince 2. I got to learn Welsh, so Welsh for beginners. I was asked to write various newspaper articles, comment on things on TV and on radio. We got the work that sort of we were doing with community archaeology also got nominated and acknowledged for Welsh Government awards. And so all those kind of benefits, as well as the benefits of obviously working for a national heritage body, the networks that I set up, or I could have got to foster the contacts that I developed as a result of my colleagues, but also the organisation that I was working for. So where has that kind of left me now? So unfortunately, after the second year of my time with Cadw was coming to an end, there was no guarantee that it was going to be renewed or that a permanent position would be made for me. So we have to start looking elsewhere, don't we? We all know what it's like being on short-term contracts. And a friend of mine said, you should apply for this job at Chester. You'd be great. Didn't really think I'd get it, but here I am 10 years later. And I hadn't really thought back massively about how what I'd done 10 years ago has impacted my teaching over the last 10 years until Kate and Cara contacted me. So it's been quite a sort of cathartic exercise actually for me. But it's very much fed into my research. So I've published a couple of papers on the stuff that I'd done with HMP Park, which I felt that I could publish now I no longer worked for Welsh Government. You can say a lot more when you're outside the institution. So it's very much impacted my ability to integrate outreach and engagement into my own research, and that forms a central part of my research. Moving into kind of university metrics of research excellence framework and impact and all of that kind of stuff is very, very much equipped me to deal with that environment. It's helped develop research partnerships. So I've built the research partnerships on the stuff, on the networks I created, being part of this training placement, and those contacts have stayed with me. So I still work with the Clwyd Powys Archaeological Trust, or I should say HENEB, as they are now, National Museum of Wales, as well as new ones in and around Cheshire and the northwest of England. Anything else on there? Yes, and I'm now working with HMP Berwyn up here in Wrexham. We've just finished a set of 6 weeks of interventions with them. They are very, very keen for us to continue. I'm looking at putting a funding application together for that. That's in partnership with colleagues in criminology who are actually doing some really good evaluation of the benefits, whether archaeology can offer any pro-social experiences for offenders, or I should say people serving prison sentences. And there seems to me to be a real gap to that I would like to plug in terms of making archaeological activities more sustainable and more easily deliverable within prisons across England and Wales. And that's something that I'm kind of moving to next. But it also is fed into my teaching. So my passion for sort of community archaeology or public archaeology is very much now running throughout the programme that we have here at Chester. I have colleagues who are also well equipped and skilled at public archaeology and engagement, some of whom on the digital format. So my colleague Howard is constantly on TikTok. You've probably seen him. He's, gets into quite a lot of trouble as well, I should say. Heated debates, shall we say, on TikTok. Other colleagues do a lot of outreach and engagement with their research as well. And we've always had quite a strong heritage strand within the programme. But our students tend to be more of the non-traditional student than elsewhere in higher education. So Chester's sort of demographic is not the same as some of the Russell Group universities. We get a lot of first-generation university goers, carers, mature students, and our kind of polar, so our socioeconomic backgrounds of our students are very different as well. So that's really great. Working with the prison and kids and everything that I've experienced through the training placement has helped me become far more equipped at working with our students from those backgrounds who've got neurodiverse as well. And that's something that I hadn't really clocked, the way that training placement had inadvertently given me the confidence and the skills to deal with that situation. We've developed new modules. So we now have in our sort of public archaeology undergraduate module, we now have students doing actual public engagement as part of their assessment. So the last 2 years, they've been creating museum exhibitions in the Grosvenor Museum. Before that, we had them doing public conferences, public talks, and that all forms part of their sort of authentic assessment. I've also now started to develop level 7 public archaeology module specifically, and hoping to develop that into a public archaeology masters, if not a stream within one of our masters. And quite a few of our students are now also going into public archaeology, community archaeology. So I've got a picture of Erin on the bottom right there, who graduated undergraduate and masters with us and has gone on to be a community and engagement officer for Durham Museum. So very much that kind of outreach and engagement side of things. So I suppose when it comes to evaluation, Kate was mentioning earlier, how do we evaluate the longer term impact or effects of these training placements? I am just one case study of however many there have been. My journey will be unique and very, very different to anybody else's. But for me, the thing that's kind of made me step back and think, wow, actually, these placements are far bigger than we've ever, I think, recognised the impact of them, is the ripple effect that they have, that we can't necessarily measure unless you maybe go back to every single placement holder and chart or ask them what they've been doing for the last sort of 10 or 15, 20 years. So not only have I gained massively sort of personally fulfillment, professional development, the memories that I've got, the friendships, the professional networks, as well as the personal ones as a result of those training placements, my research, everything like that. It's the way in which that now runs through every aspect of what I do as an archaeologist. That then goes out to my students, some of whom love it, some of whom don't like engaging with the public, and they never will, and that's fine. Because a degree in archaeology is not just about going out to dig, it's not just about actually going into archaeology. A degree is a degree, you can go out and do anything with it. And it's that kind of the shaping of the student learning environment, I think, is really important. But also understanding how archaeology is a really exciting way to develop lots of other interests, skills, competencies, behaviours, all of these buzzwords that I really don't like, but I can't think of any other ones to use, as the prison work has very much shown me, and our students have shown me, that, as one of them in the back row, in fact, so questions towards Emma, It's very much that idea that archaeology is cross-disciplinary. We're at the nexus of the arts, of the humanities, of STEM. We cover all of these things depending on which route you want to take. And you can inadvertently develop all number of skills just through enjoying an archaeological activity. And so I'd like to thank CIFA for having me here today, but also for supporting these programmes, the Council for British Archaeology, who I am eternally indebted to CADU, to Andrea, in fact, sitting there, who I'm one of those shameful ones that didn't do the NVQ, shamefully, and didn't join CIFA straight after. Still time, yeah. Without the joined up thinking and the collaboration of all these different organisations, these types of experiences and skill development opportunities wouldn't exist. And I think that's, for me, that's the key going forwards. It's, yeah, providing the opportunities, because you never know what the ripple effect is going to be.